The Canute Road Conservation Area was designated in January 1986 in recognition of the importance to the development of the city as a major shipping and passenger port. Locally, the area is always associated with the story of King Canute reproaching his courtiers. Historically, there were mud flats and salt marshes where the eastern docks may now be found. It was the coming of the railway in 1840 that transformed the fortunes of the town. Entrepreneurs soon realized that transferring their cargo by rail to Southampton from London could save at least a day's sailing, as the evidence of development along Canute Road still shows. Approaching Canute Road from the east, the first building of interest is the post office renamed Admiralty House. This imposing three-storey building, situated off the south side of Canute Road opposite Queen's Park, was built in 1902 as the main telegraph and post office for Southampton docks and was opened in 1905. Mail was sorted here before loaded onto the great passenger liners. The building, which is now Grade 2 listed, was used by British Telecom for a time and has since been converted into apartments. Next door was the Customs House, designed by Henry Nicholas Hawkes and also built in 1902. It replaced the 1847 Customs House next to Dockgate No. 4, which became Union Castle House. Despite being a Grade 2 listed building, Hawkes Building was demolished in 1966 and Portcullis House was built on the site and used by Her Majesty's Customs. It is now called Portcullis Apartments. Union Castle House was built around 1846 by Alfred Giles as the new Customs House, replacing the old Customs House on Town Quay. The site was originally occupied by the short-lived Royal Gloucester Baths, built in 1827, and some of the original brickwork may have been included in the new building. The Portland stone frontage was added later to the basic yellow brick building. Until 1953, the building housed the offices of the Union Castle Line, but was later also converted into apartments, which is also Grade 2 listed. Dominating Canute Road is South Western House, built during the Victorian period when each railway company hotel was expected to outdo the other. The London and South Western Railway Company was no exception. Passengers from the Titanic stayed here, and during World War II it was given the code name HMS Shrapnel and used by the Royal Navy as headquarters for landing craft for Operation Neptune on D-Day. Pilgrim House was built on reclaimed land as the eastern docks developed as the hub of the port in the 19th century and early 20th century, and has recently been brought back to life after an extensive 6-month restoration. The building has been returned to its original use as an administrative headquarters with a mix of offices and meeting rooms. Between Pilgrim House and the remaining dock railway line is the Wilson Dorsett Bank building, built in 1907. They were taken over by Lloyds Bank in 1915. In 1957 it became the Western Union office. From the front is a highly ornamental building with Ionic columns, a parapet on the roof, and Wilson Dorsett Bank established 1835 on the frieze. This date refers to the establishment of the bank and not the construction of the building, and led to an incorrect date on the statutory list. The classical front obscures the irregular footprint, which is governed by the railway tracks. Cutting a swathe across the road is a single line branch from the main line into the docks. It is now mainly used by trains carrying motor cars for export-import into the eastern docks, although in the past it provided access to a railway platform for the ocean terminal as well as the flying boat terminal, and is still used occasionally by the Orient Express. On the opposite side of the tracks is Provincial House, built in 1927 to 1929 for the National Provincial Bank by F.C.R. Palmer. It was also known as the National Westminster Bank Chambers. It is red brick with Portland stone dressing, round windows and large arched windows and doorways on the ground floor. It has a high chimney and a tiled hipped roof with a dormer window in it. The gate piers to the west are contemporary with those next to the Wilson Dorsett Bank building and mark a separate railway crossing. The track is no longer there, but the piers remain and are listed along with Provincial House. White House is a two-storey yellow brick building with evidence of its commercial functions in the facade, with the words Towing Office and Capital and Counties Bank above the ground floor windows. It was built in 1896 for the Capital and Counties Bank, but it also had R&J Rd Limited and Red Funnel, both shipping companies, as tenants. In 1920, Capital and Counties was taken over by Lloyd's. After World War II, Red Funnel moved out, and R&J Rd left in 1986. Matthews Brothers was a tenant from 1971 until 1979, when the Solent Port Services moved in, but it is now converted into accommodation. Next is Dart House, or Maritime Chambers. It is a wide three-storey yellow brick building with a piedmont over the centre that has the initials LSWR, London and South Western Railway. It was built in 1899, and until World War I, the North German Lloyd Line Norddeutsche was a tenant. They were forced to leave at the outbreak of the war. It was used as an embarkation office during World War I, and afterwards was used for the shipping companies Cunard, later Cunard White Star, and Dart Container Line. The building still has its timber doors and sliding sash windows. In contrast to Dart House is Canute Chambers, built in 1893, out of red brick for the American line. The large Dutch gable and bay window on the front are unique to the conservation area and make Canute Chambers stand out from its neighbours. Similar to Dart House, it was occupied by a number of shipping companies, most famously the White Star Line from 1907 to 1931. Outside there is a plaque identifying the building as the offices of the White Star Shipping Company, who owned the Titanic, and when she sank in 1912, the families of the crew gathered outside the building. Today it is still an office building with several tenants. The final building on this side of Canute Road is Ferry House, now the Admiral Sir Lucius Curtis, a Wetherspoons pub. It is yellow brick with simple brick coins and windows, much like Dart House, Pilgrim House, and the original building of Union Castle House. Ferry House was built in 1872 as Dock House, the headquarters of the Southampton Dock Company. It was later used as a Southern Railway Docks office, and in 1962 Thorsten Ferries moved in, giving it the name Ferry House. Across the road, number 1 Canute Road addresses the corner of St. Lawrence Road. It was built as a New York hotel, which it remained until 1874, when it became the London and South West Steam Packet Offices. In 1897 it changed to the South West Chambers and is currently used as offices for a variety of businesses. Many of the buildings on the north side of Canute Road have different tenants for each floor. In the past, the upper floors tended to be offices for shipping agents. For example, 10 to 12 Canute Road had Dunlop and Shoals agents for Vanderbilt European Steam Packet Company in its upper floors until 1912. Numbers 2 and 3 were the offices of J.R. Crosskey & Co., who were the agents to several shipping companies. Number 3 and 4 were the home of the U.S. line from 1923 to 31, when they moved to Canute Chambers across the street. Number 2 and 3 were built together and share upper floors, although their ground floors differ. By 1912, numbers 2, 3, 4 and 6 were the shop of Miller and Sons clothiers. The building is 4 stories with a cornice between the second and third floors. It may have been built concurrently with number 1 Canute Road, but it was probably later, as the first business directory entry is for 1852, whereas number 1 is 1850. Number 4 Canute Road was built at the same time as number 5. They share the same dentile moulding on the top of the building and have identical windows, although number 4 has been painted and has a parapet and different shop front than number 5. These shop fronts were added to the building much later. Number 5 Canute Road was built in 1852 as the Ship Hotel. It still retains its pub advertisement on the front elevation stating London and Dublin and Stout House. In 1933 it was known as the Refreshment Rooms and later as Canute Cafe. It is currently a buffet restaurant and is remarkable as it has retained its eatery use for over 150 years, whilst the rest of the street has changed tenants and uses many times over in this period. Originally built in 1851 as the officers' home of the Royal Mail team, number 6 was also millers, clothiers and outfitters, and number 9 was the shop of J.R. Stebbing, an optician who also sold mathematical instruments and had built an observatory in the rear. They were redeveloped in 2005-2006 by Orchard Homes. Number 10 and number 12 have had front shops added. The first floor has 2 sets of 3 arch sash windows, and the second story has 3 casement windows with an arch window above the centre window. Next are numbers 10 and 12 Canute Road. Originally built as offices, each had a wide variety of tenants over the 3 floors, including a money changer, tobacconists, tailors, hairdressers, caff and newsagents. The most prominent building on this side of the road is the Canute Castle Hotel, 13 Canute Road, on the corner of Canute Road and Royal Crescent Road. It was built around 1850 as the Canute Hotel. It originally had an octagonal viewing chamber on the corner. It has pilasters supporting a frieze with the name Canute Castle Hotel on both the south and east elevations. In addition, between the first and second stories on the Canute Road side, there is a plaque stating, "Near this spot, AD 1028, Canute reproved his courtiers." It is currently a mix of commercial and residential uses, although it still has the architectural features that make it look like a grand Victorian hotel. The northern side of Canute Road consists mainly of a terrace of shops and hotels and recently built student housing, now dominated by restaurants and estate agents. Adjoining Canute Road to the north is Royal Crescent Road. New buildings almost completely surround the listed railway goods shed on Royal Crescent Road. It is currently a car park for the student housing and is separated from the public by a brick wall with railings above. It was built in the late 19th century in a Gothic style, possibly by Sir William Type, when the expansion of the railway resulted in the demolition of the original goods shed. Returning to the other side of the entrance to Ocean Village in Canute Road, which marks the end of the official conservation area, is the bank building, built in 1896 as the Grant and Madison's Union Bank. It is red brick with Portland stone dressing and an interesting arch pediment above the entrance. The doorway has Ionic columns supporting a triangular pediment which makes a very grand entrance to the bank, similar to Provincial House and the Wilts and Dorsett Bank buildings. Outside the scope of the conservation area are also buildings of note. The Froggen Figure Pub, which began life as a wharf building in the mid-1800s and is now one of the last standing in Canute Road. It sits opposite the original site of a dockgate which has long since disappeared. In its lifetime, the building has served as a ship's stores and chandlery, a private residence, a private members' club, and now as Southampton's Spit and Sawdust live music pub. 1981 saw its birth as the Froggen Figure and Dock Brewery Company, brewing its own line of real ales. Marsh Hotel on the corner with Canute Road is a former public house dating from 1840. It was originally opposite the entrance to the floating bridge, which was replaced by the Aitchen Toll Bridge, and as such would have served as the end of the walk from God's House Tower. The central part of the building is 4 stories high of red brick. There are single-story curved wings on either side of the ground floor. It is known as a fully licensed public house on the 1878 drink map. It is also Grade 2 listed. Adjoining Canute Road is Albert Road South, which runs from Chantry Road to Chapel Road in the Chapel District, constructed by the Itchen Bridge Company in 1837, originally to link Chapel and the floating bridge. Further along Albert Road is Royal Albert Hotel, also built around 1840. It too is Grade 2 listed, built of yellow brick. Following to the end of the road, we are taken back to the Royal Crescent Road and the Canute Conservation Area. On the corner is the Solent Sky Museum, which began as the R.J. Mitchell Memorial Museum in 1974 and has expanded to include all aviation in Hampshire and on the Isle of Wight. Overall, Canute Road's architecture is mainly dictated by function, so the shipping and docks offices are generally in simple yellow brick, with little ornamentation, while the banks use different materials and architectural elements to make them stand out. Before the 19th century development, passengers arriving at Southampton would only see the frontage of buildings along the north side of the Canute Road. The buildings along the south side stand testament to the prosperity of the port and the town.